Hey everybody, thanks for joining this session. My name is Jeff Maloney. I help with marketing for Agile Management, and it is my pleasure to introduce Robbie Rivera, who is an Agile coach and practitioner, and he is here to talk about his experience helping Cisco along with their Agile journey.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Good afternoon, folks. Hopefully you're all having a good day so far. Before I jump into the presentation, I just want to acknowledge Jeff and the CA team for putting together this great event and being our host this whole week. So let's go ahead and get started. As Jeff mentioned, right, I'm an Agile coach and practitioner within Cisco. And I'll really be sharing my experiences during our journey, which we started 2.5 years ago, in 2014. And highlight specifically how we use Rally or Agile Central to enable that transformation for us. Agenda, I'll provide a brief introduction about my background, and then I'll provide a little bit of a context of what was the landscape and the environment in Cisco when we launched this initiative, going over what were the high-level objectives, what were our strategies, and how we executed and digitized using Agile Central to enable our transformation. And then I'll end with going over what were our key learnings and success factors. And then if we have time, actually questions, I'm going to go ahead and take it back there, okay? So a little bit of background. I've been in Cisco for 17 years, taken on multiple roles from software development to program management, and recently being an Agile coach and practitioner. I've led teams, global teams, that have practiced Agile as well as Waterfall in the context of developing external products that we sell to customers, as well as internal applications, enterprise applications, web-based, as well as mobile apps. Okay. And in 2014, we launched this initiative called Continuous Delivery. And my role there, I was part of the team that led that transformation, and with the goal of making Cisco a little bit more adaptable to the business changing needs and adopting more of the Lean and Agile mindset. Okay? So let me start by quoting our CEO back then in 2014, which was John Chambers. And he had this guiding principle for us, and I'm going to quote him. If you don't innovate fast, disrupt your industry, disrupt yourself, you'll be left behind, end quote. So he had this advice for all of us. We'd rather be the disruptor rather than be, or otherwise we're going to be disrupted, right? So given that mindset, our IT leadership identified opportunities on how we can streamline and deliver and transform the process of how we deliver IT services to our employees and to our partners. And we had 3 main goals. The first one is we wanted to accelerate the time to capability. It was taking us upwards of 9 to 12 months to put out new releases, new major releases, new capabilities. And what we were seeing was those capabilities were hardly used or never used, right? Due to the big timeline from the time that we commit to it and the time we get it out to the end user's hands. For whatever reason, it's not relevant anymore. So, so we wanted to improve that, right? The second thing we wanted to do was improve even though we're asking our teams to move fast and be more agile, we cannot compromise on quality, security, supportability, and all the other litty stuff, right? So what we asked them is, as you optimize and streamline the process, whether that's development, that's your QA, that's your release operations, digitize and automate where you can. And then the other thing we wanted to do was embed this mindset that if you must fail, fail fast. That way we have time to recover. And we viewed failure as a success as long as we learn from it. So go ahead and try things out. If it doesn't work out, that's okay. Okay. I was embedded in one of our teams that was transitioning to Agile for the first time. And during our first sprint, on the fifth day of our first sprint, we identified a dependency on one of our enterprise platforms. We needed some APIs, and we discovered that it wasn't there. So the impact of that was all our commitments for that sprint, we were dead in the water because we needed that interface, it wasn't there. So the whole team was panicking, right? I was smiling from ear to ear. Because why? It just illustrated one of the key advantages of moving to Agile. We discovered this dependency on the fifth day of the first sprint. If we were still practicing waterfall, we would not have discovered this until probably 4 months later, right? Because we would have been busy putting together requirements documents and then throwing that over to our IT teams who would then take and write the corresponding functional specifications and design specifications. Okay. And our third objective is really to optimize that total cost of delivery. We were in silos. We were organized in silos. And we're still organized in silos in IT today. And what typically happens is the teams would optimize within their component, within that broader value stream. And so they optimize, but what we're seeing is the impact of that to the whole value stream is really not positive. It's actually impacting it in a negative manner, whether that's upstream or downstream, right? So we asked our team to go look at the whole value stream. And this is why Agile calls for that cross-functional representation, right? You want representation from each of those components of your value stream. The other advantage to that is that you would eliminate the handoffs between those silos and the inherent negative consequences. So things like delays between the handoffs as well as misinterpretations. Okay. So in essence, what we're doing is really doing a mindset shift across the organization. Right. So let me do a quick pulse check here. How many have started their Agile journey? Okay. How many are well underway, like you're at least 6 months into it? Okay. How many are practicing Scrum? Kanban? Scrumban? Scrumbutt? Have you guys heard of that term, Scrumbutt? What about our Scaled Agile? Any Scaled Agile practitioner? So it looks like we have a pretty good diversity in terms of maturity as well as different flavors of Agile, right? So this is how we attack the problem. We looked at it from 3 perspectives. We looked at it from the people perspective, from the platform perspective, as well as from the platform perspective. And from a people perspective, what we did is we told our employees, look, this is where you are today. This is where you fit in that model. These are the new skills that you need. And here's your learning roadmap. Once we got the people to understand where they fit in this new model, they acquired the skills that they needed to be successful. That made the transition a lot easier. So my personal Agile journey started about 6 years ago. I was assigned to a team to be a Scrum Master, and Agile was new to me. So I sat down with my management and said, look, in order for me to be an effective Scrum Master, I need to go through training. And they agreed. So I went and took the Agile certification, became a certified Scrum Master, became a certified product owner, right? And then a year and a half ago, that journey continued for me. As an organization, we wanted to look at what's the next level of evolution in our journey. So we wanted to scale. We were getting very good at the team level, but now we want to take it to the next level at the program, at the portfolio level, right? And we heard about this thing called Safe Agile. So again, had that same conversation, and I went through that training to become I took that Leading Safe class, became a scaled agilist, and then took it to the next level and took the process and the training to become a scaled program consultant, right? Because in effect, they were looking to people like me and my team to lead the transformation for Cisco IT. Okay? From a process perspective, we jumped all in Lean and Agile. We did not dictate. So Cisco's big, right? We're about 110,000 employees with thousands of development teams and projects. So we use them all. Scrum, Kanban, Scrumbat, Safe, right? We did not dictate. We left it up to the teams to decide what teams within their portfolio they want to transition over, what programs and initiatives you want to transition over, and what flavor of Agile you want to practice. Okay. Oh, and the other thing that we wanted to embed in the mindset is this concept of a minimal viable product. Let's focus on what are those top priorities that have immediate business needs, focus our resources on those, get them designed and developed, get it into our end users' hands, get that feedback from the end users, and then integrate the feedback back into our next planning cycle, increment, and iterate. And then from a platform perspective, what we asked our service owners were to think infrastructure as a service. It was taking days, sometimes weeks, for our teams to get the infrastructure that they need. They needed a new JVM. They needed a new database schema. You know, we wanted it from days to minutes, right? Because we want our teams to right away focus on developing the services or the capabilities that will then enable the outcomes, as opposed to sitting and waiting for their configuration to get set up. So now I'm going to go ahead and kind of do a little deeper dive on where we use Agile Central and where we enable the transformation. This is our end-to-end lifecycle, and if you look at the columns, those represent the different phases within our cycle. And then the icons that you see really are the major platforms within those phases, and the items in yellow are the key personas that are involved in that phase. And starting from left to right, it really starts out with what are those key outcomes, what is that vision that you want, and then you then define what are the capabilities that will enable those outcomes that is aligned to our strategic priorities as an organization, right? And then, like everything else, right, resource dollars is always a bottleneck. So there has to be some element of prioritization involved. And then you actually, once you do, for us, we had a gate called an investment commit. Once you do an investment commit, then we go into execution. And where we use Agile Central is after we do an investment commit, that's where Agile Central becomes our source of record. Basically, that's where we put our features, the user stories, the tasks, and groom them to the point that we're ready for our sprint execution. If you're sprint planning, if you're practicing Scrum at the team level, or if they're practicing Safe, then it's get them to the point where we can do our release planning or PI planning. I'm going to do a double click on the deliver outcomes phase here and use a use case of an application development. That life cycle that I just described, we use it for application development, but we also use it to manage our programs, run the business type things, okay? So in terms of our application development, where there's a analysis and planning phase, and then there's design, then you have an element of QA, and then ultimately you have the deploy and release. Again, highlighting where we use Agile Central, it's more on the front end, the analysis, grooming the features, grooming the user stories, prioritizing them, and then ultimately doing that sprint execution. And then on the QA side also, where we associate our test plans, test cases against the user stories. And as we do our builds and do some type of regression testing with those builds, we do both progressive and regression testing, right? And so the process looks like a developer would do a code commit. Our Jenkins system will pick it up, initiate a build, and then load the build into one of our development environments. Then it will pick up the associated test cases, run the regression test, disposition the results, and then put it back in Agile Central. So that whole process is automated. So the idea here is if there's any type of regression, we know about it pretty much in minutes or hours, depending on what the size and the complexity of the features that we're developing at that time. This is a illustration for our teams that are practicing Scrum. And again, looking at it from the product backlog, prioritizing it to enable our sprint planning. We also use the features within Agile Central where we do our capacity planning so that when we do our sprint commit, we have a high confidence that we can meet those commitments because we use the capacity planning that's built into the tool, right? We can see at the team level if we're over or under allocated. We can also see it at the individual team level. And let's say Joe is 125% allocated and Mary is 25, we can easily do that rebalancing. Right? In terms of our execution, when we do our daily scrums, when team members are going through their daily update of what did you do yesterday, what do you plan to do today, and if there are any impediments, as a best practice is what we do, the Scrum Master would share the Scrum board, the team view, right? So as the team member is articulating his or her update, you also have the visual to kind of help cross-reference what is being said at that time. So Cisco is especially Cisco IT, we're a global company. We are in 110 countries. We have over 140 time zones that we're located in. I'm based in Virginia. I have been working in my home office in Virginia for the past 10 years. And everyone I work with is remote from me. My team members are in either San Jose, California, in Raleigh, North Carolina, or in India, China, right? And yet we practice Scrum and Agile, even in that geographically and time zone dispersed environment. And the main reason we can do that is because of Agile Central and then the collaboration tools that we have. You know, we leverage our Cisco technologies like WebEx and telepresence. We have our Spark rooms, virtual communities. We use Jive. So it's still harder to kind of practice Scrum in a distributed manner, but we do it on a daily basis. Okay. In terms of our retrospective, whatever actionable items that come out of those retrospectives, we write corresponding user stories or non-functional requirements, put it back in our product backlog, and then it gets evaluated just like any other user story, along with the business requirements and the technical requirements. We also use this, a lot of the built-in capabilities within Agile Central, specifically the burn down chart. We look at it on a daily basis. We make sure that we're tracking tracking to our commitments. And if we're seeing it sort of leveling off or even going up, it's an early indicator for us to do the necessary investigation of why are we not making progress incrementally, right? And then we have time to do the necessary course correction or reset expectations as needed. It's a busy slide. This is not my slide. For those who are who's familiar with SAFe, you should be familiar with this, right? This is what they call the big picture. And really, the intent of this slide is just to highlight where we use Agile Central within the SAFe framework. I just described how we use it at the team level, whether that's practicing Scrum or Kanban or Scrumban. We use it at the program level because at the program level, you have additional roles and ceremonies, right, to coordinate across the different teams. So the functions like the release management, the system team, the product management, they all conduct their equivalent of a Scrum. And so we all use Agile Central as our source of record to enable those workflows. Wanted to call out the how we prioritize. We do use the weighted shortest job first. That SAFe calls in terms of how you prioritize your features based on economic factors, right? Factoring the cost of delay type things. So we went to GitHub, pulled the source code from GitHub and integrated it into our workspace. Pretty useful stuff. At the portfolio level, we do have a handful of teams practicing at the portfolio level. So, and we use it for traceability. So you can trace at the strategic level, the strategic themes, what are the corresponding portfolio epics, and then cascade that down to our program epics, right? But I would characterize our SAFe practice at the portfolio level as we're not quite there yet. I would characterize it as it's still evolving and we're still in discovery mode. And I feel that we need to do a certain amount of reorganization within our organization to align ourselves better to value streams. Because especially in IT, we are still organized around technology groups. And I think what we need to do is really align across value streams. So there is still a delineation between our IT organization and our business stakeholders, right? Which makes it quite difficult to really practice the way you're supposed to practice scaled Agile at the portfolio level. Here's one of the key metrics that we track, speed to outcome. What is our average time to deliver capabilities? So I have 2 quarters worth of data, and what we've seen so far is that we've had about a 25% improvement quarter to quarter. So it used to take 48 days on average. Now we're down to 38 days. So what are our key learnings and success? So this is where I would characterize as Agile Central, where it really shines. So as I mentioned, we are very distributed, remote. Our teams are, we're not co-located, right? Our advice to teams that are cross-functional and co-located, you're probably better off just using the traditional whiteboard and stickies. You probably don't want to use a tool like this because you're going to be more effective and probably faster, right? But that is not reality, especially in Cisco IT. For us, we're distributed, and so in that situation where we have teams that are cross-functional, but yet we have dependencies between the teams where we have to do Scrum of Scrum type activities, or we practice scaled Agile, right? A tool like Agile Central really comes in very handy. The other thing is for ISO compliance. One of the other great thing about Agile Central is it logs everything. So you can always go back and find out who did what, when, and why. And if you're being audited, that is key, right? We've had to add a few custom fields as well as a few process steps so that if any of our teams or any of our programs are audited, we have a high level of confidence that we can go through that ISO audit relatively easily with a high level of confidence of success. And really just to summarize, what are our key learnings and factors to date? We've been at this for about 2.5 years, and the journey continues, right? We're focused more at the scaling up to the portfolio as well as the value stream, right? So we feel we're quite mature at the program and the team level. So the next level of evolution for us is at that next layers. From a people perspective, what we have found with Cisco is that executive leadership support from our CIO, CEO, head of HR, head of marketing, all singing the same tune. That is, as an organization, we need to be more agile. We need to be more, think MVP, minimal viable product. What is that top priority that will deliver business outcomes today? Focus on those, get it into the end user's hands, get the feedback, and then integrate the feedback in your next planning cycle. Okay? The other key thing is the training. Invest in our training. Give the employees the necessary skill set that they need, right? From a process perspective, again, it's just having that business engagement and having that MVP mindset, right? The key difference here is business in the traditional way they're in their silo, right? They'll put together that business requirements document, they'll work on it for a few months, they'll document it, then they'll throw it over the fence, and then IT takes over and starts developing their design and functional specifications. In Agile, it's constant collaboration, multiple times a day. And so it's quite a bit of a mindset shift for our business stakeholders as well as your end users, right? Because you're putting out incremental functionality out there. They have to be receptive and prepared to be able to absorb that more frequent deliveries from the development teams. And then from a platform perspective is really our service owners having that self-service type mentality, infrastructure as a service, right? It used to take, I think I already mentioned it, right? It used to take days to get a new JVM. Today, it takes minutes. Basically, all a developer has to do is go to our enterprise store, click a few buttons. If you need a new JVM, it'll ask you some parameters like what CPU capacity do you need, what kind of storage requirements do you need. Click submit, and in a matter of minutes, that JVM is provisioned, right? So have that type of mentality if you're a service owner. And that is really what I had for you guys today. Are there any questions from anyone? Okay, we have about a minute, so I think I could take.
Talking specifically about Cisco IT, not all of Cisco.
Well,
Because I am a part of Cisco as well, and we use SAFe extensively all the way through the portfolio level in the commerce space.
yes.
So we are extensively SAFe and Agile, using
Right.
Agile Central as the primary tool.
Excellent. Do you use it for your planning and budgeting?
Yeah, absolutely, all the way through.
I need to talk to you then. Yes. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Yeah, okay. If you have any questions, we can take it on the side here. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.